Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is John Viveiros, the host of Hot Take Hockey here. We're going to do a post-draft lottery mock draft for the 2024 NHL draft. So definitely comment your thoughts down below, your picks, your mock picks, and hit that like button, hit that subscribe. I really do appreciate it. So let's not waste any of your time in this video. We're going to jump right into it. So San Jose Sharks win the draft lottery. The order actually stayed the same. So that's what we're going to rip through. And of course, Arizona is going to be Utah for next season. So first overall, I'm not going to overcomplicate this one. It's Macklin Celebrini, right? Celebrini, first overall, I do believe this is dynamic guy. I mean, if a lot of people have been asking me for comparison, but I just think his impact goes well across the ice, all three zones. I think, and this is kind of the similar comparison I make. Like, look what Lafreniere is doing for the Rangers now. I would put Celebrini above Lafreniere. And I think he may not jump onto the scene the way Bedard and McDavid have, but I think he's like right there, probably just below those guys. So whether you want to compare to like a Nate McKinnon when he started up, obviously McKinnon's one of the best players in the world. I don't know if Celebrini will ever get there, but he's going to be enough of a dynamic factor that you're going to see his impact with San Jose right off the bat. Number 2, and I'm going to go with, a lot of people are calling him the second best player on the draft. Ivan Demidov is just very creative, and I'm just kind of intrigued by this prospect from what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of tape on this guy. I wasn't really familiar when I did like my first initial mock like a couple months ago, but just the last couple months, just some of his tape in the MHL, I've really just focused on the guy, and I'm like, geez, man, this guy, like some of his skill sets, some of his edge work, and how he creates chances. I think Demidov's going to be a threat, an offensive threat, and just how he creates offense. And if he can look at the physical side of the NHL, like him going forward on Chicago with Bedard would be electric. So I do think that's going to be the pick for Chicago. Looking at number 3, and I think, again, in terms of defensemen, I feel like he's kind of become that number 3 guy. And I think I'm going to pick Lev Shinov. I think kind of the review from him in terms of European players, just overall just really solid defender. And just in terms of two-way ability and what he can bring and what he has brought in the NCAA, I think it speaks for itself. I think overall, in terms of defensemen, I think Lev Shinov's the top. I think pure offense, I'm really high on Zane Parekh, and we'll get to Zane Parekh here coming up. But Lev Shinov probably overall is the best defenseman on the board. Going to Columbus, and you know what? A lot of people think he should fall like into the outside of the top 5. I'm going Cole Eiserman to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think so. This is my top 4 right now so far: Eiserman, Lev Shinov, Demidov, and Celebrini at number 1, obviously. So Eiserman at number 4. I just think, I mean, you see the U.S. national development team list in terms of goal scoring. Like, he's above Cole Caulfield, above Phil Kessel. I think Eiserman is just a pure scorer. And I think when you're talking about Adam Fantilli as the future number 1 guy for the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think it'd be nice to have just a pure goal scorer next to him. And I think Fantilli and Eiserman are going to rip it up with a lot of the other prospect pool, or the rest of the prospect pool that the Blue Jackets have. So number 4, I'm going to go Cole Eiserman. So let's go to number 5 here. And I will slide this up so you guys can kind of see a little bit better. All right, let's go to players. So number 5, Montreal Canadiens. And to me, this one's kind of tough because I feel like last year I thought they were going to go forward. And then there was a lot of the rumors of Reinbacher. And then, like, I just think since they went defenseman, they're probably going to go forward. Like, that's at least my prediction. And I think top on the board is Caden Lindstrom. I think he has such a high ceiling. I think when you're talking about, like, speed, the size that he brings, I think he could really complement a guy like Slavkovsky in terms of bringing size. Montreal has really, I mean, look at the value they brought into guys like Josh Anderson in that playoff run. Like, you're talking about a guy here that I think there's been some comparisons to like Byfield, maybe like McTavish, I think. I think Lindstrom brings that kind of type that Montreal likes and what they selected in Slafkovsky. So I really think that his maturity speaks for itself. I think maybe he'll take some time to kind of transition his physicality into the NHL and kind of transition into a scoring ability. But I think Caden Lindstrom's a really good pick for Montreal at number 5. And like I said, they went defenseman last year. I think going forward here is definitely a smart pick. So we're at number 5, guys. We're at number 5. We're going to rip to a top 15 here. And just going through my notes here. Number 6. And Ottawa, like another interesting one for me because, or sorry, Utah, another interesting one for me. Ottawa, number 7. Let's go through that first. Utah, Arizona. I do think when you're looking at the Coyotes and now moving to Utah, you want to make a really big-time statement pick. And I honestly think when you look at the forward group, looking at like Logan Cooley, looking at Keller, a lot of dynamic forwards, I think it's time to go for like that high-risk, like high-octane offensive defenseman. And that's where I think Zane Parekh here is the pick for the Coyotes and going to be the Utah team, right? So I keep saying Coyotes, but it's going to be Utah. Zane Parekh, 6th overall, Saginaw Spirit. I think for this, for FC Hockey, they have him ranked 11. But as I said, I'm so high on Zane Parekh as an offensive threat. And I do think with the Coyotes right now, looking at their defense group, I think they really need a guy on that right side in terms of pure offense. And they brought in Sean Durzi. We'll see what Sean Durzi becomes, but I think Durzi's offensive ceiling is a little bit more limited. And just to kind of pull up like Utah's prospect pool, they drafted Maverick Lamoureux, who's going to be probably a really good top 4. So if you get Lamoureux in there, you get Zane Parekh, you're looking pretty good for the future of Utah in terms of their defense group. So number 7, let's go to the Ottawa Senators. And I do feel like, again, I feel like they should draft forward here. I think when you're looking at their defense group, specifically on the left side, like they've got Shabbat, they've got Chychrun, they might trade Chychrun, they've got Sanderson. So it's interesting where they're at. But I am going to go, I don't know if this is necessarily, I don't think this is off the board. I think a lot of people have kind of seen his skill set, and I just feel like he's a very high IQ player. And I think when you kind of see him in terms of at least the highlight packs and some of the tape I've seen in terms of game action, I think he creates like something out of nothing really well. And who I'm getting at here is Mr. Spokane, WHL, Berkeley Catton. So Catlin's really stepped on the scene. Again, I've kind of told people I haven't really followed the WHL as much as I've wanted this past year. I was really following the OHL in terms of junior hockey in Canada, but I've heard a lot of good things for Berkeley Catton, and that everyone's confident he's going to be a top 10 pick. So that's kind of where I have Berkeley right now. So if you see here, again, guys, I'm kind of going on a little longer. I wanted to rip through this pretty fast in terms of top 15, but number 1, Celebrini, Demidov, Levshunov, Yzerman, Lindstrom, Parekh, Catton. So that's my top 7 right now. We'll just, with a little bit less analysis, we're going to rip through 8 to 15, and then I'll kind of give a summary of how I feel at the end. All right, we're at number 8 for the Seattle Kraken. I have them selecting Zeev Buyum. And I think, for me at least, again, I think the defense class here is really intriguing. Buyum, left shot defenseman, played for University of Denver in the NCAA. I think when you talk about just the rise of American defensemen, probably the best defenseman in college hockey this season. And I do think in terms of two-way ability, again, when we talk about the two-way ability in this draft, Levshunov's definitely up there in terms of defenseman. But then you look at Parekh, just pure offense, and that's where I think Utah could select that just in terms of the spark. But Buyum, again, another really good, just solid defenseman. I think his floor is going to be at least a top 4 defenseman in the league. So Seattle wants that. They definitely will value his offensive ability and his offensive awareness. But again, I think his two-way ability and how he's a little bit more well-rounded than a guy like Parekh, I think is where Seattle is going to value this pick. And number 9, and honestly, guys, maybe it's boring, but I'm all for storylines. I'm all for great stories in hockey. And my hot take is actually I could see Calgary trading like down to maybe like the Philly or Minnesota or San Jose pick that they got from Pittsburgh. But I think in some way Calgary's going to find a way to select. Where is he? Tej Aginla. So little WHL represent Kelowna. Just probably one of the more I don't know if dynamic's the right word, but just aggressive shooters, volume shooters. Just a guy that loves to rip and scored almost 50 goals this year in the dub. And I do think that in terms of just his dad with the history with the Flames and just the NHL fam, I think he's going to be a guy that is almost guaranteed to translate. Top 6 forward, really good scorer, I would think. I think he's probably got a lot of the raw talent that you need a lot more development. But as I said, I think with the NHL family, NHL background, and the Flames kind of investing a lot in another Aginla, I think that would work out well. So draft summary, we got Bouillon at 8, Aginla at 9. And I'm going to go at number, maybe this is a bit of a surprise. I don't think it is. But I feel like some people have had him fall a bit. Some people have had him on the rise. With number 10, I have the New Jersey Devils selecting Consta Helenius. So I think Helenius showed well in the World Juniors. I think he's going to even show more and more going forward. So I'm going to have Helenius going to the New Jersey Devils. Buffalo Sabres, they've gone defense heavy with a lot of their high-end draft picks, whether it's Power, whether it's obviously Dahlin. They have drafted a lot of forwards as well. So with number 11 in the 2024 NHL draft, and honestly I could see the Calgary Flames maybe taking them because played for Calgary, the WHL, Carter Yakemchuk, 6'3" right shot defenseman. I do think that he brings a lot of risk, but he's always making things happen with the 6'3" size. He does lay the big hits. So maybe Calgary, if they don't take their guy Aginla, maybe Yakemchuk could be on the radar. But I will say this, that I think Buffalo, just in terms of like what they're building on their defense group, Yakemchuk, if he can lower the risk, I could see him being a future partner for Owen Power. And I do think his size, like I said, 6'3", is just perfect for what they're developing in that defense group for Buffalo. So they're a bit more thin on that right side. And I think I had Yakemchuk always in my top 15. So I think that's a good pick for Buffalo. Philly. I think it's time for Philly to draft another defenseman. Camp York's kind of been their positive here on the left side. Then you got Jamie Drysdale now in the fold. Let's add another defenseman for Philly. Let's draft London Knights, represent Sam Dickinson. And I do think when we're talking about familiarity too, the fact that teammates Oliver Bonk and Barkey play for the London Knights currently with Sam Dickinson. So I think if it comes around to this point in the draft and the Flyers value Sam Dickinson and he falls to them, I don't know if he falls this far, to be honest. And there's a couple reasons here. The Devils have drafted a couple defensemen, like Luke Hughes recently, and looking at a couple of the guys, like whether it's Nemec, of course. But I think when you're looking at from 8 to 12, where I see Sam Dickinson going potentially, I mean, he could go as high as Ottawa, to be honest. But again, Ottawa has Sanderson, Shabbat, Chigger on the left side. Seattle, they'll have their pick of defensemen if they go that route. Calgary, like I said, I could see them going defenseman, but I could also see them trading down. Like I said, my hot take would be San Jose trades up to that pick with Calgary. San Jose, because they're drafting Celebrini first overall, they pick like Sam Dickinson or Bouillon or Perek, and then Calgary gets like Tej Aginla at that spot. But Sam Dickinson, if he falls to Philly, I'm guaranteeing that he won't fall past 12. That's my point. So that's my hot take. Maybe he falls a little bit, but with Barkey, with Bonk, with the familiarity there, Flyers will take Sam Dickinson if he falls. Minnesota at number 13. And you know what? This one's interesting for me because I feel like the Wild, they're not really like, they've been a playoff team in recent years, and I feel like they have a lot of guys on the up. But I'm going to go my OHL insider represent here. And I'm going to go with Liam Greentree. Greentree, probably one of the only bright spots, or just very little bright spot in Windsor this year. They finished lower in the league. I do think that when you're looking at Marco Rossi, I think the future there, Greentree would fit really, really nicely. Just a guy that has a high motor, leader, already a young leader with the Windsor Spitfires. I think he might, who knows, he might get traded at some point and play with a contender in the OHL. And I just think in general, he's kind of like an all-around balanced guy. And I think his floor, probably better to say his floor. His floor is probably like a middle six, really good complementary piece to second line guy at the very least. Could even be as good as a top line with it, all of what he's brought in his arsenal. It's kind of hard, right, at this point in the OHL, especially when you're playing with a rough team. He's shown as a really bright, like a big bright spot with Windsor, but Windsor just had a really poor year, so it's probably going to be easier to evaluate Greentree like a couple months into next season. So that is number 13 to the Minnesota Wild. So I haven't picked Anton Silyev yet, and I think just being 6'7", 200 pounds, playing big minutes in the KHL, 17 years old, I think that's rare. I do have him as a top 10 pick. I think I'm kind of like Bouillon, Parak, like I'm kind of relying more on that skill that I think they should go higher, but Silyev just at 6'7" with that ceiling, I think he should be a top 10 pick. So that's my hot take in this mock draft. I wanted to be creative. The San Jose Sharks and Calgary Flames are going to swap potentially. So if you go here, so Silyev at 14, no, he's not going to fall that much. Put him up to number 9 to the Calgary Flames. And I could see him going as high as 7 to Ottawa. But that's kind of my vibe there. I think a trade could happen with the Sharks and Flames potentially. Flames drop down, get an additional pick from the Sharks. They pick Tija Ginla here. And the Sharks get the big, whopping 6'7" defenseman. And what a draft that'd be for the Sharks to get Silyev and to get Celebrini. So that's my hot take there. All right. And let's wrap it up. Number 15, Detroit Red Wings. And Stevie Y always wants to build a defense group. I think he just keeps adding to the defense core. And I'm going to go Adam Juracek. Look out for Henry Muse. Also plays for the Ottawa 67s. If the Blues were to go defenseman, I'll just add 16 there because the Blues missed the playoffs. So we'll go top 16. Why not? So Henry Muse to the St. Louis Blues. Adam Juracek to the Detroit Red Wings. Again, that's a trade. So keep that in mind. Greentree, 13. Dickinson, 12. Ikemchuk, 11. Hellenius, 10. Iginla, 9. Bouillon, 8. Catton, 7. Perek, 6. Lindstrom, 5. Yzerman, 4. Levshunov, 3. Davidoff, 2. Celebrini, 1. So give me your thoughts, guys, on the mock draft. So as you guys can see here, that is the proper order after the trade. So as you guys see at the bottom, Sharks trade up to the Flame spot to select Silyev, and Flames get additional pick and select Iginla at 14. Sorry, I should have corrected that. So give me your thoughts, guys, on what you think is going to happen the rest of the way with all these other picks, the rest of the teams. My top 16, I had to predict one trade. I mean, usually we don't get the trade, but I wanted to make a hot take. We got that one trade in recent memory with Montreal, Chicago. So you never know, guys. Subscribe, like, comment, notification bell. We will see you on the next one. Peace!